ladies and gentlemen, I am the Dutchman, and welcome back to Ship vs. Ship. Today we are going to do one of the most debated matchups in all of Star Wars, which is of course the Venator Star Destroyer against the Imperial Star Destroyer. The Venator Star Destroyer, which sometimes called the Republic Star Destroyer, is of course the Star Destroyer used by the Galactic Republic against the Confederation, which is highly based on its fighter garrison. Ooh, we already got here. And it's got a very large fighter garrison indeed. And not trash tier fighters either. These are pretty sturdy starfighters. The ARC-170 in particular, one of the most heavy assault starfighters in the entire mod. Whereas the Imperial Star Destroyer is a very large hunk of floating metal and weapons, which pretty much sacrificed all fighter garrisons for more armor and weapons. Pretty much a ship-to-ship combat focused ship. Let's start
Our target priority is the laser
laser beam first. These dice are no match for the ARC-170. This is just we're just basically hoping to destroy the Venator before its fighter garrison absolutely destroys me.
Ready for command.
Those are the V-wings. Ideally, I would like to target the ARC-170s because those things have heavy lasers. They have tail gunners, they have torpedoes. It's just a very bad time. The description of the ship, I think, yeah, it still says Imperial-I, but this is the Imperial-I. Take my word for it. It has a few. My God, this is loud. I'm so sorry. I'll turn this down a little bit. The Imperial has a few weapon. The Imperial-I has a few weapon changes from the Imperial-II. Is it even in range? Yeah, it's dual turbo lasers still firing. The Imperial-I, of course, has several laser cannons instead of turbo lasers, which, of course, laser cannons still do a lot of damage, but not nearly as much as a turbo laser, and they are far more accurate, which means that they are far more suitable for attacking starfighters, for example. Instead of ship-to-ship combat, turbo lasers are your huge naval cannons, so to say, whereas laser cannons are, say, smaller AA guns. Another difference is the Imperial-I has, instead of the octuple turbo lasers, which are basically 8 turbo lasers on a rotating platform, it has more heavily armored but far weaker, of course, dual turbo lasers, which only fire 2 shots instead of 8. Let's actually activate the overcharge from the battery. There's quite a high difference. That doesn't really matter since all the weapons are set so that they can still fire through the ship if need be. That's mainly just a balance thing. And we are absolutely destroying this Venator. Venators are not really ship-to-ship fighters, even though they do have quite a few weapon systems that they can rely on. It's mainly the fighter garrison. Oh god, it's already started. Try to kill these if you can. I mean, they're still close to the ship, so we may be able to hit them. Oh, ARC-170s, they are so good. They are so good. Those tail guns are so useful. I mean, it's pretty much the only Star Wars ship we've seen with tail guns, and by God, are they useful. In dogfighting, they are exceptionally good because, well, since they have those tail guns, they don't actually need to. Where are they? Quite a while away. They don't actually have to face the enemy fighter to be able to shoot lasers at. Oh god, there's more. Okay, so let's just focus on those and try to take these out as quickly as we can. Not particularly fast, but well, they have pretty heavy lasers on each wingtip. I can't really focus the camera on them. Maybe if we do this, we can get a shot off them. They are quite small, of course, in comparison to our ships. That's the V-wing. There we have the Venator. Most of its guns are already destroyed, and I think we will be able to take the Venator with relative ease. But then, of course, the challenge becomes taking down the garrison of fighters. Now, the V-wings are not that much of a problem, because they don't really have anything to attack the ship with. But the ARC-170s, well, I mean, you can hear the heavy laser cannons wingtip. They do quite a bit of damage, and of course they do also have torpedoes, and then when you try to send TIE fighters behind them, then the tail guns rip them apart. And it's not just one wave of them either, they've got several waves of those. So they spawn 2 ARC-170 squadrons at the beginning, the Venator that is, and then if those are destroyed, then, well, they've got more. But wait, we've got more. Luckily we did manage to destroy the Venator. Alright, so our Imperial-I, I know the description says Imperial-II, but it is the Imperial-I. Did actually take Well, not as much damage as I would have thought. I mean, I don't think the AI actually used the bomber squad as they should have. They were firing at the shield for a little bit, but had they taken that down, it would have been much better. Let's actually do that again, because I'm sure the AI can do much, much better. These two ships do cost the same amount. They both cost 8,000 credits. But the idea is that you are going to use the actual fighter garrison of the Venator, of course, and of course everything that's still in its hangar. It doesn't launch everything at once, and use that to take on the Imperial, while you kind of keep the Venator itself behind. As I said, against the Imperial Star Destroyer, it really doesn't stand too much of a chance. Of course, it's designed not to. If you compare the Venator to the Imperial, I mean, this is a floating fortress designed for ship-to-ship combat, not as much as the Imperial-II, but the Imperial-I can still really punch quite a hole in anything you send it at. While the Venator really is the carrier, sort of. Still a very versatile starship. It's got missiles, it's got lasers, it's actually got 8 lasers, laser cannons in the hull. They're not targetable, because that would just give the ship too many weapons, and of course there you have the dual turbo lasers. I'm not sure why it spawns the ship on this low of a height twice in a row. That's kind of unfortunate, because you can't really show the ship off all that well. You can still do this, of course. Fires 8 missiles at a time.
Destroyer here. We've got them on scope.
I'm not sure why it's not attacking the ship. I mean, if this is all they're gonna do, then of course I will be able to take on the fighter garrisons quite easily. Ugh. See, that's just not great.
The lasers are our target.
Let's activate the overcharge, which makes the primary batteries. It specifically says in the description it overcharges the primary battery. The primary battery of the ISD are the 8 guns around the superstructure, which are the 6 dual turbo lasers and the 2 dual ion cannons for the Imperial-I. The Imperial-II has octuple turbo lasers. That thing is just a beast. That thing's about the best you can get in ship-to-ship combat. It does have quite a bit of health, but it is quite vulnerable against these. I'm not sure why they're running away. Really unfortunate. In a bit we will actually do this battle again from the perspective of the Venator, and then you'll see that it is very much capable of taking on this ship. I didn't cost them Nexus M for nothing. Ah, take them out! Get him, please. No? Let's see, if we zoom out, then we get the FOV a little bit higher, and then we can actually see more of what's happening. Nice, we actually got him. Normally TIE fighters don't really win against these, but I suppose in large numbers they still can do quite well. Let's get a little bit closer. I think most of our weapons are able to fire. I think these rear ones aren't. So yeah, aside from the weapon changes, the Imperial-I is a little bit different from the Imperial-II. It has a different fighter garrison. It spawns TIE fighters instead of TIE interceptors. The Imperial-II has TIE interceptors. And it has 25% less shield points. The Imperial-II has 10,000 shield points, the Imperial-I only has 7,500. I think we'll be able to take out the Venator here, and I think purely because the AI doesn't know how to use these starfighters. We are definitely going to win this. That's pretty cool. I have to say I do like watching my mod in action. My apologies for that. I'm quite proud of the whole creation thing. Now, let's see how much damage this is going to do. These weapon banks are very heavily armored, by the way. They're better off going for the exposed turrets. They've got a lot less health, but now they do actually seem to be attacking. If the tail guns don't rip my TIEs apart, they can do quite well. But, again, those tail guns, man. Those tail guns.
Awaiting your orders. Attacking target.
Now, because the Imperial-I actually has the... let's zoom up. Higher FOV. Since the Imperial-I actually has these laser cannons instead of turbo lasers in the trench, it's actually a little bit better against fighters. It's still not amazing, but it can at least defend itself against, for example, these ARC-170s. Whereas if you send them against an Imperial-II class, they're going to be even more effective, because it doesn't have any laser cannons. It's a barrage of turbo lasers and it's just a hail of firepower, and your starships aren't going to last long. But a bomber wave is actually very good against them. Well, I mean, I think if that's it, then I think we can say that the Imperial won quite easily, actually. But now we're going to switch the roles around, and you'll see that the Venator is a very capable starship if you use it correctly. Here we go. I'm not sure where that explosion noise came from. That's something I have to look into.
Reporting in.
Alright, so now apparently we spawn differently. Alright, let's go, ladies and gentlemen.
Destroying the shield generator. Roger that.
Let's lock S-foils to move a little bit faster. I don't think it actually registered.
Destroying the shield generator.
They do get quite a speed bonus if you... Oh, we are attacking, alright. Oh, the ship's gonna get absolutely decimated. This is gonna be fun. Okay, so we're gonna target the shield generator first, of course. We should be able to take that out quite quick. Okay, quite quickly. And there it goes. And next squadron. You see, if you actually use your ships and your fighters properly, then it really makes quite a difference. I mean, these V-wings are not that great. They're not bad. I was actually very close yesterday to giving them fighter-to-fighter missiles, which are these very small, say, missiles that A-wings and TIE defenders have. They're not great, but they're a little. They're nice. Actually, if you take out the hangar, then they pretty much be dead in the water. Of course, it still has these massive cannons and all the lasers, but let's actually get the lasers first. Okay, the other ones are here. You can fire at these. If we take out the lasers in the hangar, then the hangar is not even that dangerous. Mostly because these TIE fighters aren't all that great.
Ready, sir. You may fire at will. Engage target. Weapons.
Alright, let's actually get the Venator in there. It does have quite a few weapons that it's not firing. I mean, these medium turbo lasers I don't think are firing. And of course the laser cannons in the trench. It does have 8 laser cannons. It's actually a very versatile starship. It has this laser beam, which is quite powerful. It has the missiles, which aren't much to write home about. They're still nice to have. And then of course all the turbo laser batteries, which also they're not that powerful. They're just jewels, and they don't fire all that quickly. But with the overcharge, it's still a very capable starship. I'm not sure why it's not targeted. Yeah, there goes the laser beam. That is capable of pretty much instantly wrecking any hardpoint. And now let's use the overcharge. Again, the turrets do fire through the ship, but that's just for balance purpose. If you're not able to aim the turrets up and down when you need to, then the ship is really bad in some circumstances. For example, if they weren't able to fire at the Star Destroyer and you can't rotate the ship up and down, then all of these cannons are just worthless. That's no fun. So I just decided to change it to this. Well, I think this is gonna be quite an easy victory, and that's just by proper starfighter management. It's not even starfighter management, it's just not running them away when you can easily win. Oh, these heavy laser cannons, they do so much damage. Well, the laser bolts themselves don't do that much more damage than just a regular laser bolt, but it's just the fact that there's so many of them. Normally, starfighters, for example the V-wing, can't actually fire at ships like the Imperial Star Destroyer, or any capital or frigate actually. And that's mostly because, well, small blasters like this, they aren't designed to attack heavy starships, so why should they even be able to fire at them? They still, of course, fire at bombers and fighters and everything else, but against heavily armored capital ships like this, I mean, realistically, they wouldn't do any damage anyway. So, then you have ships like the Arc 170, and those, oh yeah, those do damage. See these massive cannons, the wingtips? That's damage, ladies and gentlemen. I do want to actually see it blow up. I want to see it burn, which should happen right about now when the torpedo volley hits. Yep, and there we go, ladies and gentlemen, victory. We didn't even lose the ship. We did lose kind of half the ship. Let's see if we can still win if we throw the Venator into the ISD, since then it can actually train all of its weapons at it. Well, the ISD at the Venator, of course. Which is, of course, not what you want to do. I mean, don't throw your carrier ships at the floating fortress with all the cannons, but you can still do it.
Destroying the shield generator. Awaiting orders. Attack.
Again, shield generator first, because those 7,500 shield points, there's still quite a bit of damage to go through, so...
Standing by. Star Cruiser here.
No, just you. Lock S-foils. Oh, Arc 170s, man. They are so versatile. You can increase their speed by the S-foils. They've got tail guns. 2 actually, 1 top, 1 bottom. They do have limited fire arcs, but they are just so useful. They've got a lot of shields, they've got a lot of armor, and of course those gargantuan forward-facing cannons, and of course the torpedo, which I absolutely love this ship. The Starfighter. This is really probably one of my favorite Starfighters in Star Wars. They're also quite powerful, expensive I mean, so don't just throw them to their deaths, they do cost quite a lot. Not sure why these guys are over here. Oh, right, they're chasing the TIEs. These should actually be faster than TIE fighters, so.
I copy.
Again, the laser cannons of the Imperial-I are quite effective against the fighters, so we are losing some squadrons. Okay, we should now be able to fire pretty much everything we have. Definitely the guns affected by the overcharge. The overcharge in this, again, the main batteries of the Venator are the 8 dual turbo lasers at the side of the superstructure, so that's what is affected. Lasts for 10 seconds, I think, maybe 8, I'm not sure. Missiles are not that important, so as long as the turbo lasers survive. The hangar is not targetable, the laser beam is, but the laser beam doesn't fight through the ship. It is kind of only underneath the ship, since it does originate from the hangar. It's not the main weapon of the ship anyway, so I figured it wouldn't be bad to restrict that.
Waiting orders. Attack.
Oh, I shouldn't actually fire at these. I should fire at the turrets. The weapon banks are of course heavily armored because they're so far integrated into the superstructure. Actually, the iron cannons, that one is a turret, so that one might actually go down very quickly. Yeah, see, that goes down far quicker. That should be it. Oh, almost. And then the turrets are of course exposed. The Imperial of course has far more turrets. You've got small ones here, these are triples, a lot of duels spread around everywhere. There, in front of the bridge. There's also 2 quads here. Was very close to making that turn. Imperial turrets actually fire a lot slower than most other turrets, but they do have longer range, so they kind of make up for that. Which means that, and that's actually funny, guns like, for example, the dual heavies of the Venator, the turrets, actually do more damage up close than the Imperial turrets, because the Imperial turrets fire so much slower, and that applies to the duals, the triples, but also these, and of course the front quads. So individual turrets like these, they're not that impressive, and they're not actually that dangerous. For example, these, they're not that dangerous, but oh, right, we did actually. Shit. Luckily, we should. Okay, well, that means we should start targeting the lasers.
Target their lasers. We're here.
Yeah, lasers.
Move in on their lasers.
Because the lasers are more dangerous against fighters. That should be that. Let's see if we can take out these.
Target their lasers.
Oh, if I knew there was another barrage coming up, I would have targeted one of the full health ones.
Weapons on.
No!
Engage target.
TIE fighters.
Keep in formation.
Yeah. They'll still lose against a large swarm, and TIE fighters are actually the only fighters in the mod that actually come with 10 fighters per squadron. Normally it's only 6, like here or V-Wing. But since TIE fighters are so crappy, I decided to actually make them the only fighters to spawn in groups of 10. Now I do wonder if we can actually take this out.
Target their lasers.
And since the Imperial has so many weapons that are actually not targetable, like all of these turbo lasers, it's still quite dangerous even if it's half dead. Or, well, in this case, almost dead.
Target their lasers.
It's part of what I like so much about the Imperial class. It's just a dangerous ship. Like, even though all of these individual turrets, they're not that amazing or dangerous. Like, for example, these lasers, you'll see that they don't fire all that quickly. There's I think it's an 8 to 10 second reload, but all of them combined still make for a very impressive ship. Well, that one's just falling into the deep, vast void of space. Okay, so if these are going to turn around, then they should fire at these because their torpedoes should be ready to fire again.
Target their lasers.
No, go on, face the ship.
Move in on their lasers.
Okay, and the lasers. Oh, okay, the lasers are already fired at those.
Target their lasers.
Now the tail gun should be able to take care of these remaining ties, hopefully. And there's a one hardpoint left at the end of this superstructure, namely over there. It's just not out. Okay, well then these actually have to really hurry up because the tail guns are again these very small blasters. They're just designed to target small fighters like this. They can't actually fire at very large entrenched hardpoints on, for example, capital ships
Move in on their lasers.
or frigates. Yeah, nice. All right, so I hope that video served to showcase that. It's really about how you use your ships, not necessarily about the ships themselves. You can definitely take out an Imperial Star Destroyer with a Venator, if you don't throw your Venator right into the ISD's jaws, because then you're just going to get #wrecked. So yeah, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourselves, and be sure to leave some suggestions for more ship versus ship battles in case you want to see more, and I will see you next time.